There's something powerful about going quiet, and I don't mean silent because you've got nothing to say. I mean quiet because you've said enough. When a woman decides to stop explaining herself, to stop proving her worth, to stop justifying her emotions, her actions, her dreams, that's not a breakdown. That's a breakthrough. That's not weakness. That's wisdom in its highest form. You see, in a world that constantly pushes you to react, to argue, to defend your name, sometimes the loudest statement you can make is your silence. Silence isn't about running from confrontation. It's about choosing which battles are worth your breath. When you're disrespected, your first instinct might be to speak up, to fire back, to make them understand what they did wrong. But let me tell you something, some people already know they're crossing the line. They just want to see how far they can go before you stop them. That's where silence becomes strategy. When she went quiet, people started noticing. Why? Because the energy shifted. The same people who overlooked her when she was always available, always answering, always fixing, suddenly felt the weight of her absence. That quietness, it echoed. It made them reflect. It made them wonder. And that's what silence does. It turns confusion into curiosity. It forces people to ask themselves, what changed? You don't owe everyone a response. You don't need to attend every argument you're invited to. When someone shows you disrespect, they've revealed their character. You don't need to match their energy. You need to maintain your peace. And your peace, your dignity, your sense of self-respect, they're far more powerful than any heated comeback. You're not going quiet because you're scared. You're going quiet because you're done participating in cycles that drain you. You're done shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's limited view of who you are. You're done trying to teach people how to love you when they haven't even taken the time to value you. That kind of silence is sacred. It's not about hiding. It's about healing. You ever notice how the most dangerous storms come with calm just before they hit? That quietness, still, unsettling, full of power? That's the kind of energy I'm talking about. When you go quiet, you don't lose power, you build it. You're pulling your energy back, you're refocusing, you're aligning. And trust me, people notice. They notice when you stop chasing. They notice when you stop explaining. They notice when you stop being the one always available, always trying, always holding things together. That's when the worth they ignored becomes undeniable. Your silence isn't just the absence of noise. It's the presence of strength. It's a statement, a boundary, a declaration that says, I've elevated beyond this nonsense. You're not ignoring what they did. You're choosing not to give it your attention. Because where attention goes, energy flows. And you've got too much purpose, too much value, too much future to waste it explaining yourself to people who already made up their minds not to understand you. Let them sit with your silence. Let them miss your presence. Let them remember your worth in your absence. Because once you stop arguing for your value, you begin living it. And that's when everything changes. There comes a moment in life when you stop asking, why did they treat me like that? And you start asking, why did I allow it? That's the shift. That's where self-respect begins, at the border where you finally build boundaries. See, people will treat you exactly how you allow them to. And when someone disrespects you, it's not just about what they said or did, it's about what you decide to tolerate after that moment. Self-respect isn't loud. It doesn't always come with confrontation or big dramatic exits. Sometimes it shows up in quiet decisions. Not returning that text, not explaining yourself one more time, not giving them another chance to make you feel small. You don't have to announce your boundaries for them to be real. You live them. You walk in them. And people either rise to the level of how you treat yourself or they fall away. You've got to understand your peace, your emotional stability, your mental health, they are not up for negotiation. Every time you let someone walk over your feelings just to keep the peace, you're starting a war within yourself. And that's a war you never win. The moment you set boundaries, you stop bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand you a bandage. But it's hard, I know, especially when you're used to being the one who gives chances, the one who forgives easily, the one who always tries to see the best in people. But here's the truth. Not everyone deserves access to your heart just because you have a kind one. Your kindness doesn't mean you have to be available to people who disrespect you. That's not kindness. That's self-neglect. So when you're disrespected, don't try to fix it with more effort. Don't explain your worth to someone who discounts it. That's not your job. Your job is to protect your space, your spirit, your energy. Because when you finally respect yourself, you change the entire conversation. The way people speak to you changes. The way they treat you changes. Why? Because they know you're no longer tolerating less. You see, boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're doors you control. You decide who gets in, how long they stay, and what kind of energy they bring. When someone brings chaos, disrespect, or manipulation, you don't argue. You close the door, you don't slam it, you don't make a scene, you just lock it from the inside and move on. And let me say this, if someone leaves because of your boundaries, let them. That's the point of boundaries. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into your next season. And when you start choosing yourself, when you start saying no to what drains you and yes to what grows you, don't be surprised when certain people start falling away. That's not loss. That's alignment. You're not being rude when you protect your peace. You're being responsible. You're not being cold when you stop engaging with disrespect. You're being clear. The moment you stop shrinking yourself to avoid making others uncomfortable, you start living in your power. And yes, some people will say you've changed. Good, that means it's working. So next time you're disrespected, don't explain, don't chase, don't beg, just remember who you are. Act like it, move like it, live like it. Because when you start treating yourself with the respect you deserve, the world has no choice but to follow. And that's when they realize they can't reach you the same way anymore. You ever notice how drained you feel after trying to prove yourself to someone who's already made up their mind about you? That exhaustion, that emptiness, that's what happens when you keep spending your energy in places that don't deserve it. Because energy is currency. And just like money, when you spend it carelessly, you go broke, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You need to understand this. Not everything or everyone is worth your energy, especially not disrespect. When someone disrespects you, the instinct might be to react, to make them see what they did wrong, to check them in the moment. But that kind of reaction, it costs you. It costs your peace, your focus, your joy. And when you start treating your energy like the valuable resource it is, you'll stop spending it on people who only show up to drain it. Think about it. Would you walk into a store and throw your money on the floor just to make a point? No. So why throw your emotional energy on people who haven't earned the right to be in your space? When someone disrespects you, the most powerful response is to conserve your energy, not waste it trying to correct them. Because real power isn't in how loud you speak, it's in how well you protect your peace. There's a reason people who value themselves don't chase validation. They know their energy is sacred. They don't give explanations where there's no understanding. They don't pour into broken cups, hoping they'll get full in return. You've got to start viewing your presence like a gift, your words like a luxury, and your time like a privilege, not something you give away easily just because someone demands it. Disrespect is a test, and how you respond tells the world how much you value yourself. When you respond with silence, with distance, with peace, that's not weakness, that's wisdom. You're showing that you won't trade your calm for chaos, that you'd rather be misunderstood in peace than constantly explain yourself in drama. And you know what's wild? The moment you stop giving your energy to the wrong people, you start attracting the right ones. The ones who don't require you to fight for basic respect. The ones who don't drain you with their inconsistency. The ones who see your value without you having to scream it from the rooftops. But first, you have to stop overextending yourself for people who wouldn't even stretch an inch for you. Stop throwing your energy into conversations that go in circles. Stop trying to change people who benefit from misunderstanding you. Every moment you spend trying to prove your worth to someone who refuses to see it is a moment stolen from your growth, your goals, your joy. Let them talk. Let them think whatever they want. Let them sit in the story they've created about you. Because while they're wasting energy on judgment, you're conserving yours for elevation. That's how you win. Quietly, intentionally, powerfully. And when they finally realize what you brought into their lives, your loyalty, your love, your light, they'll feel the loss. Not because you shouted, not because you argued, but because your absence speaks louder than any words you could ever say. That's the power of protecting your energy. It's easy to get caught in the trap of reacting. Someone disrespects you and boom, you're ready with a comeback, ready to defend yourself, ready to match their energy. But here's the thing, when you live your life always reacting to other people's behavior, you give them control over your emotions. And that's a dangerous place to be. The real power, it's in restraint. It's in choosing growth over emotion. It's in understanding that not every insult deserves your attention, and not every situation requires your reaction. You don't have to prove yourself to anyone who doesn't already see your worth. Because people who are secure in themselves, who know who they are and where they're going, they don't waste time reacting to noise. They move in silence and they let their results speak. That's the shift. That's what happens when you stop acting on emotion and start moving with intention. See, emotions are real, but they're not always right. Anger can trick you into saying things you don't mean. Hurt can pull you into arguments that drain your soul. Pride can have you fighting to win instead of choosing peace. And when you're always reacting from emotion, people can manipulate you. They can push your buttons and pull your strings because they know what gets to you. But when you pause, when you breathe, when you stay grounded, you take your power back. You ever notice how people who are unbothered always seem to glow differently? That's because they've mastered the art of redirecting their energy. Instead of getting caught up in drama, they pour into themselves. They read more, they build more, they grow in silence. And while the world is busy trying to provoke a reaction, they're elevating. That's what I mean when I say, let your growth be louder than your emotions. Let your improvement be your reply. Let your next level be your response, because nothing is more confusing than nung to someone who tried to break you than watching you rise anyway. While they're waiting for your breakdown, show them a breakthrough. While they're expecting you to clap back, show them calm. While they're watching for a reaction, give them results. Growth means walking away from nonsense, even when your pride wants to engage. It means choosing your future over your feelings. And that takes maturity. That takes discipline. That takes vision. Anyone can react, anyone can yell, anyone can throw words in the heat of the moment, but not everyone can pause, process, and rise above. That's a different kind of strength. That's power with purpose. You don't have to show up to every argument you're invited to. Some battles are distractions dressed up as challenges. Learn to say, this is not worth my energy, and walk away. That's not being passive. That's being smart, because you're not here to entertain nonsense. You're here to grow, to evolve, to become everything they said you couldn't be. Let them talk, let them doubt, let them throw shade, and while they do, you stay focused, stay grounded, stay moving forward, because the best clapback is a better life. The best revenge is a version of you they can no longer reach. And the best part, you didn't have to lose yourself in the process. That's what it looks like when you let your growth speak. There's something people don't realize until it's too late. Your presence was a privilege. Your effort, your energy, your consistency, your love, those weren't ordinary. You didn't just show up, you invested. And sometimes when you're too available, too giving, too loyal, people start to think that's your default. They forget that showing up for them was a choice you made, not a responsibility you owed. And the moment you pull back, the moment you go quiet, that's when reality hits them. When someone keeps mishandling you, ignoring your needs, belittling your presence, and you finally decide to withdraw, it's not about giving up, it's about honoring your own worth, because people can't feel the absence of something they never noticed in the first place. So you give them the space to notice. You take your energy out of the room, your care out of the conversation, your support out of the relationship, and suddenly the silence is deafening. They ask, what happened? What happened is that you stopped pouring into someone who had holes in their cup. What happened is you realized that being unappreciated feels heavier than being alone. What happened is that you decided to let your absence teach the lesson your words never could. Because sometimes people don't hear you until you stop talking. They don't value you until you stop showing up. You were never asking for too much. You were just giving to people who were comfortable taking without reciprocating. And here's what happens. When you take that energy and put it back into yourself, you become unstoppable. Not out of revenge, not out of spite, but out of growth. You stop seeking closure and start building confidence. You stop asking them to value you and start living like you already know your value. Withdrawal is a mirror. When you step back, people finally get a clear look at how much you were holding together. L, the times you listened without judgment. All the ways you supported them without conditions, all the times you stayed silent just to keep the peace. When that's gone, the void exposes the truth. They didn't lose someone ordinary. They lost someone rare. But don't withdraw just to make a statement. Withdraw because your peace matters. Withdraw because you've tried, you've spoken, you've shown up, and now it's time to choose yourself. You don't need to explain your decision. You don't need to announce your departure. You just need to walk in the direction of your healing, your growth, your future. And yes, it hurts. It hurts to be unrecognized. It hurts to be overlooked. But it hurts more to stay where you're not valued. And healing begins the moment you accept that your worth isn't tied to someone else's ability to see it. You were enough the whole time. They just weren't ready to receive it. That's not your burden to carry. Let your absence do what your presence couldn't. Let it show them who you really were. Let it reveal what they took for granted. Not to guilt them, not to shame them, but because sometimes silence is the only language some people understand. And when they finally realize what they lost, let it be a reminder. You were never too much. You were just too real for people who weren't ready. Respect isn't something you demand with volume. It's something you earn with how you carry yourself. It's not about how loud you can get when someone disrespects you. It's about how solid you remain in the face of it. People learn how to treat you by watching how you treat yourself. And when you let things slide, when you minimize your standards just to keep the peace, you send a message. You teach them that you'll stay, even when it hurts. You teach them that your boundaries are flexible. But the moment you shift, the moment you start honoring your own worth, everything changes. The truth is, you don't need to yell for respect. You reflect it in the way you walk away when something doesn't align with your values. You reflect it when you don't entertain drama. You reflect it when you prioritize your peace over the urge to prove a point. People will test you, they will push limits, and every time you let it slide to avoid being called too sensitive or too difficult, you give them permission to keep doing it. But let me tell you something. Being quiet doesn't mean being weak. Being calm doesn't mean you didn't notice. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not respond. Not because you didn't feel the sting, but because you know your value doesn't decrease just because someone else couldn't see it. You don't have to shout to show strength. Sometimes your distance is the loudest answer you can give. You want people to respect you? Show them how you respect yourself. That means keeping your word to yourself. That means not shrinking to make others comfortable. That means walking away from situations, relationships, and conversations that try to make you forget who you are. The more you honor yourself, the less tolerance you have for anything that insults your spirit. There's power in being unshakable. Power in being able to smile and keep moving even when someone tries to throw you off center. Not because you're numb, but because you've built yourself from the inside out. And once you truly respect yourself, you stop negotiating with people who can't meet your standard. You stop begging people to treat you right. You stop showing up for people who keep showing you they don't deserve you. The goal isn't to get people to like you. The goal is to be so grounded in who you are that their opinion doesn't sway your self-worth. And when you carry yourself with that kind of confidence, people either level up to meet you or they walk away. Either way, you win. Because you didn't bend to keep them, and you didn't break trying to be accepted. Your silence, your boundaries, your peace, they are all reflections of how deeply you respect yourself. And eventually, those who doubted, disrespected, or dismissed you, they notice, they feel the shift, they feel the gap your absence leaves, and they realize too late that you were never someone to play with. You were just someone they didn't take the time to value properly. So don't lower your standards to fit in. Don't water yourself down to be digestible, and don't let anyone treat you like you're ordinary. Respect isn't something you chase, it's something you embody. And once you start walking in that truth, the world either rises to meet you or moves out of your way.